Hey y'all, today we're talking about something a little different. We're talking about crappie fishing. That's right, we went bass fishing on Christmas Eve, the 24th, and well, we got a little sidetracked and hunted down some crappie, and this is a video showing the fish catches in the background and a little bit of what we were thinking and what we did to get bit with those crappie and where we were looking for them. So kind of a rudimentary bass fisherman hunts crappie. Come along with us. Ready? Let's get into it. We're like midday through the day, probably somewhere around there. And I already knew from a previous tournament where a big school was. So I keep knocking over his baits here. We went to that school, and it was probably half the size that it was from a couple weeks before that, but there was definitely quality fish in there. And what I was dropping was, this is a Lunker Hut little ice jig, silver and black. I do not remember the size on this. You can put it in perspective to a hand. It's not very big, maybe 2 inches long, end to end. And I was dropping this down in there, and they actually wanted it subtle. Yeah. No shaking, no nothing, just kind of just hover it there, and then maybe a little twitch or something like that, and they would come up, and a lot of them would peck at it, but every once in a while, one would hook up. That's pretty much what I was doing. What was your theory on it?
I was doing basically the same thing. I had one of those and I lost it. But I had one of these, the same size, that was all white with a green back and like green stripes on it.
Yeah, brighter colors.
Brighter colors, because we were actually fishing in like 40 foot of water.
Yeah.
They're stacked up there. And I was just dropping down over the top of them, and they're coming up and hitting it, and maybe just a little bit of just waving it a little bit, not popping it.
If you're not familiar with ice jigs, which a lot of them are, when you move it up and down, the tail has a delayed to it, so it kind of walks like that.
Yeah. And we just kind of sat around and we're hooking up, having a good time. There was plenty of fish down there.
We originally just were catching them.
Right.
And then because we were catching them from so deep, we realized that we're probably killing these. Even though we were bleeding the air sac and sending them back down from the barotrauma. We started just throwing them in the live well instead, because who doesn't like fish tacos?
Yeah, fish tacos.
So we basically kind of wore through that school. The school got wise to us, figured out what was going on. They definitely went tight-lipped. We tried moving around on that point, tried going in shallower, tried looking out deeper, and weren't really finding anything. We caught bluegill.
Yeah,
is what it was. When we went up shallower in that 30 foot, we were catching bluegill. So that crappie seemed to be off into that 40, 50, somewhere around there, and then just stacked up. I mean, they would be all the way up to 20 feet deep in 50 foot, but the base of them was in over like 40, 50.
Yeah.
So
we did try something new. Was put the forward scan on down.
Yeah, we put the forward scan on down, had complete troubles figuring out which side was forward, which side was back, where was all that. Switched it back to forward, just regular forward.
Yeah, it was confusing.
It was very confusing,
really
and definitely it's meant for ice fishing, and we completely understand why it would be meant for ice fishing.
Yes.
So we basically decided to move off of that. So we just started idling. Oh, the area we were at is actually a big island on the north side of it. There's a big sloping point, like a big round kind of sloping point. We were there, and we just started idling down Big Island. Going through there, we found another school on another point.
Yeah.
Dropped down, caught a small one,
Yeah.
I think dropped down, caught another small one.
Yeah.
Something like that, and realized, yeah, this is not the size we want. So we bailed out of there. There was another boat, the next point down, that was like a big, not like a bayliner. What am I thinking? Like a striper boat, center console boat. Yeah. There was a center console boat that would motor into the point and then drift out and then motor in. There's no way he wasn't working the same thing, catching crappie or doing the same thing. So basically just shop points along the Big Island area. You'll find him in there. There was a school from a couple weeks ago that was a giant school over by the bridge. We debated not running back to it, but eventually ended up deciding to run to it. Ran 2 over by the bridge, graphed all of it out. They weren't there. And then he said, go ahead and go to the bridges.
The pilings, yeah.
So we headed over the bridge pilings, and what happened there?
There was fish. There was fish and fish and fish and fish.
Yeah.
Every piling has probably 200 plus fish on them.
Yeah, if not 1,000.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of fish there. We bounced from piling to piling to piling. Every one of them has fish on it. We even got closer to shore on one of them, and we could see fish, and immediately we started catching fish.
Yeah, I caught one crappie, one decent crappie, or okay crappie, off of one of the pilings, and literally all I was doing is I took this out and I made a cast at it and then let it pendulum down. Like, I didn't let any line or anything. I just let it fall on the end of my line while I slow shook it, picked up a crappie.
Yep.
We got to the other piling, picked up a crappie. All of those fish are on there are a lot of small fish. There's clouds of bait. There's clouds of small fish. I caught a itty bitty crappie off of one of them.
Yeah.
And then when we went into shore or close to land, that's when we were catching a bunch of, like 8-inch bass?
Yeah, and there are a lot of them. And they were fierce. Like, you could take a kid there and drop a crappie jig and just go.
Yeah, if you are catching them on the pilings, don't be afraid to go in towards the dirt. Take a kid there and just knock them dead. You can catch so many fish there. They're not going to be big. There are big ones there, but for the most part, they're not going to be big.
Yeah, those smaller ones are going to beat the bigger ones to the bait.
Yeah, it was like almost every drop for the bass up against the land, and they were like, you'd reel one in, and there'd be like 10 of them plus following it in and all trying to smack at it.
Yeah, we were doubling up and having a good old time.
Oh yeah, it was fun. But basically, we weren't getting the right ones out of that, so we decided to run back to our cloud that we had in the Big Island.
The first spot.
The first spot that we started at. Actually found a secondary school that was not there and was moving, as a school.
It was actually moving.
Yeah, it was not holding still. You couldn't spot lock on them. They were still moving, and there was bait balls in the area, and I think they were following that bait ball, basically. Yeah. So, again, dropped, same thing, that ice jig through there. Caught a couple more. He had already broke off.
I broke off at that time, and then went to a bigger one, this purple and white, trying to get them to go with that.
Yeah.
And they'd hit it. I just didn't hook up with it.
Yeah. And they're definitely big enough to get, their mouths are all big enough to fit all this stuff. You don't necessarily have to go as tiny as I did. I just did because that's what I had. I don't have very many selections on that. This
maybe
is actually
go shopping for some
we might
stuff.
We might actually go shopping and might do this again. I did throw, this is a smaller one. I did throw this one, and I was not getting his reaction with the smaller one. I kind of thought I might get more. But they wanted a little bit bigger profile.
It might just be harder to see at 40 foot.
I'm thinking it's either hard to see this little bait at 40 foot down when you're in a cloud of a bunch of other crappie, or it just disappears because it's not very bright or anything like that. So I think we ended up at the end. We took home 6 crappie. Definitely had some really good fish tacos.
Yeah.
Fried them up. Made the wife upset because the whole house smelled like fish.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but other than that, it was delicious. Basically, right now, just find points.
Yep.
40 to 50 foot of water. And keep going until you see a cloud. Once you see a cloud, go
Fish
at
on.
them. Obviously, if you're better at crappie fishing than we are, it'd be a lot easier for you anyways. And you probably have more than just a handful of ice jigs to do that with.
Yep.
Was that it? Anything else?
No, that's it. Go, get out there and have a good time.
Get out there, have a good time.
There's plenty of fish, and they are clean fish in that clear water lake.
Yep, they're definitely clean. They taste clean. All that. The bridge. Take kids there.
Yeah.
If you want to get them into fishing and you're worried about it being cold, doesn't matter what time you go there to that bridge. You can take pretty much whatever you want. Keep it small, obviously, but take whatever you want and they'll light it up. They'll just all be like 8 inches. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed the crappie version of this. And any questions, comments, or anything you can ask down below. Hit me up on Instagram, Straight Hook Fishing. And until next time, I hope you get them.